Greetings, my brothers and sisters. First, giving honor to God and to our pastor in his absence and First Lady, to everyone assembled on the dais. My task is to present our special guest, Governor Wes Moore. You know, sometimes, however, the occasion dictates that one pause and take a deep breath to acknowledge and frame the moment. I am very honored to have this task. As I was a teenager in Bastrop, Louisiana, and I used to go to the library, our Dunbar branch, which is similar to Stanford L. Warren, and read about Black history and see all of the posters on the wall about Black history. Y'all remember those? You know, some just put them up at Black history, but at the Dunbar branch library where I'm from, they keep them up year round. But I would read about Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm and the Congressional Black Caucus and Dutch Morial, the first Black mayor of New Orleans, and all the other Black officials, you know, because I was interested in politics. But this is an honor because I get to introduce Black history. And I thank God for that. Governor Moore is a best-selling author. Did I say a New York Times best-selling author? He's written 5 books. He's a Rhodes Scholar, a former White House fellow serving as Special Assistant to Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. He's a former New York investment banker. He's a veteran, having served on the field of combat in Afghanistan. He built a business from scratch and sold that business that reinvented the first year of college for underserved students to increase their likelihood of long-term success. He was the CEO of the Robin Hood Foundation, one of the largest poverty-fighting organizations in the country. And now he's the 63rd governor of the state of Maryland. The third African American elected in the history of the United States of America. Like I said, Black history. But not only that, Sister Sams, he is the epitome of what we say, that one does not know what a child will become, what God has in store. For he did not do well in school at points. He would leave his house and his mama with his book bag and like he was going to school. But he went to the streets. And he found out there was trouble with a capital T. But glory be to God. From his experience comes a positive impact on youth and families, not only for the folks he came in contact with, but now for an entire state. He is now a husband, a father of 2, and he and I share a fraternal bond. Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. You say 1-9. Oh, yes. But you didn't come here to see me, but hear me. But let me conclude with this. In writing his writings, there are sentences that begin with, I prayed. I worship with. He knows prayer and worship, and he knows the Lord. My brothers and sisters, family and friends, with much love, honor, and all due respect, I present to you the 63rd governor of the great state of Maryland, the Honorable Wes Moore.
Thank you. Good morning, beloved. Good morning. Today is the day the Lord hath made. So we are going to rejoice. And we're going to be glad in it. And I'm going to be grateful. Truly grateful. I'm grateful to be here. And Brother Johnson, I have to say, it is an honor to be your brother in the work, and it's an honor to be your brother for life. God bless you, and thank you for all you continue to do and mean for our entire community, brother. God bless you, and thank you. And I tell you what, it feels good to be in the house of the Lord and know we can sound off with 1-9. And speaking of that, it's an honor to have our fearless leader as well, Brother Ward. You continue to lead us remarkably well. And when we talk about holding up the light high, you know, I know we have all members of our D9 family here represented today. And I am always honored to be in the house of the Lord, and I'm always honored to be in the house of Alpha. And so God bless you, and thank you, and all my brothers out here. And I have to tell you, to be here in a place and in a space that we know that the Lord ordained. To be here in a space and in a place where we have brothers and sisters who understand who our Lord and our Father is. You know, I say that I'm very clear, and my counsel has told me from Jump Street, they're like, listen, this is the separation of church and state, and I get all of that, and I appreciate it. But I also know this, I'm a child of God. I know who woke me up this morning. I know who will put me to bed tonight. I know who I pray and I worship to. I know who I give thanks to. And I know that the bond that I have with the Lord is one that I share with each and every one of you. So it is an honor to be here with my brothers and sisters in Christ. It's an honor to be here in a place and a space that for 150 years understands that the walls are not confined by brick and mortar. That the outreach that we have to the community is not confined by four walls. The outreach that we have to community is only restricted by God's love, which means there are no restrictions. Which means that our job and our responsibility is to go out and meet people where they are, and to make sure that everybody in our society understands how loved and cherished they are. That if people need clothing, we're there to clothe them. If people need food, we're there to feed them. If people are thirsty, we're there to give them water. That our job and our responsibility is to be vessels of the Lord, and to be vessels of this love. And St. Joseph, you all have shown for 150 years what it means to be vessels of the Lord's love. And I'm grateful to now have a chance to not be with you. I'm grateful to have a chance to worship with you. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to say to our God, thank you. And I know this is very meaningful today, because we know that we have brothers and sisters throughout this state who are suffering. We know that this has been a very challenging 48 hours for the state of North Carolina. And for everybody who has lost lives. For all the family members who are now forced to pick up the pieces. For all people who see how natural disasters and natural tragedies, how they are real and they are present, but how our joint responsibility now is to make sure that we are working with them to help pick up the pieces. I've been in close touch with my dear friend and your remarkable governor, Governor Cooper. And who I have to tell you is absolutely spectacular. And I know that when I had a chance to talk with my, not only did we send Maryland assets down here to help with the recovery, but I told him we were praying for him. We were praying for the entire state. And I know that with God's love, that the families who have been impacted will be supported, that the state will recover, and you all will emerge stronger than ever. And I believe it because the Lord tells us that we stay faithful, we're going to be all right. I'm honored to be here also with so many remarkable colleagues and also so many elected officials. And I have to tell you, so I'm new to politics. I had never run for office before in my life before I decided to run for governor. You talk about a leap of faith, boy. But I know that for all of our elected officials, the people who choose to raise their hands, when it's not easy, when it's not simple, when there are tough decisions to be made, when you know that your privacy and your personal time will forever be violated, I want to say thank you. And so to all of our friends, to Senator Hunt, to Representative Hawkins, to Commissioners Burns, to Sheriff Burkhead, to Commissioner Namashina, to Commissioner-elect Valentine, to Supreme Court Justice Earls, and the longest-serving representative in North Carolina legislature, Mickey Michelle. By the way, I was hearing some of the stories that we had as we were coming in, and I usually don't do this, but I literally invited myself to lunch because I was like, I just want to hear stories. So thank you for accepting it. I know it was very rude on my part to just invite myself. But you all are absolutely blessed with this extraordinary leadership and the extraordinary legacy that you all continue to show. And also, I'd say, and I want to give thanks also, because I know you're not here right now, but to your pastor, Pastor Augustine, I just want to say it is an honor to be in this pulpit and an honor to be in this space. And I'm looking forward to coming back and continuing to hear the word from him and the First Lady as well. A lot of people wonder, say, like, so why is the governor of Maryland down in North Carolina? And my answer is simple. It's because we have 36 days in a wake-up. We got 36 days in a wake-up. And too much is on the line. And the decisions that will be made in 36 days in a wake-up will matter not just to the people of my state, but will matter to the soul of this country. And I want to be clear. We will push for 36 days in a wake-up because we believe in this nation, we believe in its promise, and we know that we are not going back. My belief, and my excitement to do everything that I can to make sure that in 36 days in a wake-up, that we make the right decision in this country. And that we have, for the first time, I'll have the honor in January to say the words, Madam President. But my belief in that is not because of a political affiliation. My belief in that is not because of a political party. My belief in that is because I've seen the work. And I've seen the preparation. And yes, we understand the danger of the alternative. And I always say, the alternative is not even worth speaking his name. Because I believe in introducing good into the conversation. But my belief and why we plan on working for 36 days and a wake up to get the result that we are looking for is not because I'm afraid of the alternative. Because we all know the alternative. The reason that we will work 36 days in a wake up is because we are hopeful for what the future can actually hold for us. I'm not going to spend 36 days in a wake up talking about how we're going to be on the defensive. I'm talking about how we can spend 36 days in a wake up talking about how we're going to be on the offensive. Because results matter in this. Results matter when we're talking about issues that matter deeply to us. Results matter when we're talking about an administration that has now delivered historic lows when it comes to unemployment rates within the African American community. Results matter when we're talking about the fastest uptick of black-owned businesses and small black-owned businesses, primarily by black men, that we have seen since the beginning of the pandemic. Results matter when we're talking about a reduction of the racial wealth gap by 20% since the pandemic began. Results matter when we're talking about a candidate who, when she's talking about economic growth, she's talking about work and wages and wealth for all of us and not just some of us. Results matter when we're talking about things like ending child poverty. And I can tell you this is very personal to me because, again, when I ran for governor, when I was talking about we're going to end child poverty, and people say, listen, don't talk about that too much because it doesn't poll well. I said, I'm not running for governor so things can poll well. If we're not going to be about the people's work, then why bother? If we're not going to address the fact that we have children whose destinies are being determined before they even have a say, if we don't address the fact that we have racial wealth gaps that exist in our society. In my state, when I was inaugurated, we had an 8-to-1 racial wealth gap in the state of Maryland. And let's be clear, that's not because one group is working 8 times harder. But there are structures in place. And if we're not going to talk about how we can do things like increasing capital and liquidity for our small businesses, if we're not talking about things like how we can make more people homeowners and give people the opportunity to own more than they owe, if we're not talking about the opportunity to make sure we're passing something off to our children besides debt, then we're wasting the moment. And it is good to have a presidential candidate. When she speaks, she's talking about work, wages, and wealth, and she's saying it with a plan to make sure that that is actually a deliverable and not just something that we use as a punchline. And it's good to have a presidential candidate who I've seen them when it was hard. You know, one of the reasons that I think about things in the military. I first joined the Army when I was 17 years old. I was too young to join the Army by myself. My mother had to sign the paperwork for me. And as President Ward knows, after my teenage years, my mother would sign whatever paperwork that they put in front of her. Brother Johnson was right. I'm thankful that I had a praying grandmother because I needed it, boy. And one thing I learned is that you never learn anything about anybody when times are easy. Because when times are easy, anybody can show me anything. If you ever want to learn something about somebody, watch them when it was hard. Watch them when it was tough. Watch them when the heat got turned up. As we learn from the book, the truest test for Job about whether he loved the Lord wasn't when things were easy. The truest test for Job was when it got hard. And the Lord would ask him, "Do you love me?" And then Job would look back at the Lord and say, "Lord, you know I love you. Why are you doing this to me?" And the Lord would say, it's because I love you, and I'm preparing you. Every preparation you ever need to learn about somebody is not when it's easy. Watch them when it's hard. And I got a chance to see that on March 26th, when my phone rang at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I learned that a ship the size of 3 football fields had slammed into one of the most iconic bridges in my state. And immediately upon impact, a 2-mile bridge collapsed in the bottom of the river. And a port that is responsible for around 13% of my state's economy was now closed. Thousands of workers were hours away from realizing they no longer had a job. 40,000 people who relied on that bridge every day to get to work were about to wake up and realize they no longer had a bridge. And we had 6 Marylanders who were fixing potholes in the middle of the night. Fixing potholes while we slept, who are now gone. And immediately we began to mobilize resources and realizing that we had just entered into one of the most traumatic incidences in our state's history. And I cannot tell you what it felt like when my phone rang and I heard 3 words. Dove, it's Kamala. And she said, I know you just spoke to the president, but I want to let you know we are going to be with you every step of the way. You sometimes can forget the messages that come from people when things are going well. You never forget the messages that come from people when things were tough. And when I say that when the vice president's words, that we're going to be with you every step of the way, when I say that they were not just promises, they were prophetic, I mean that, because they were with us every step of the way. And despite that morning, knowing that we lost 6 Marylanders, when I promised those families we would bring the comfort and the closure that they needed, and it took weeks, but we were able to find all the bodies of the individuals we lost and bring them back to their families and allow their families to have the closure that they deserved. When we told those thousands of workers who now realized they no longer had a job to no fault of their own, and when we said we would make sure that all of them were taken care of and their families, and not only were we able to make sure that they were okay, the unemployment rates during those months for our state not only stayed amongst the nation's lowest, we actually gained 7,000 jobs in the month of April. And when we told everybody that we were going to get that Port of Baltimore reopened fast, and I was talking to those divers that morning, and I asked them, what are you all seeing? And they said to me, Governor, I can't see a foot in front of me. There's so much debris in the water. And when people told us that it would take up to 11 months to be able to clear that channel and reopen the Port of Baltimore, through partnership and through God's grace, we got that port reopened in 11 weeks. But it doesn't happen just because. And it doesn't happen because of a singular individual or a singular group or a singular unit. It happens because we work together, and it happens because what the vice president said, she meant it. And so I'm a big believer in faith. I'm a man of faith. I am someone who believes, as my grandfather said, and listen, my grandfather was a minister. You know, my whole family, I come from a long line of preachers and teachers. That's my family's background. Preachers and teachers. My grandfather, I remember when I left for Afghanistan, he gave me a Bible. It was one of those little Bibles, the New Testament ones. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Big enough to fit right inside my flak vests when I went on every mission. Right over my heart. And in the beginning of that Bible, he just wrote 4 words. He just wrote, have faith, not fear. Have faith, not fear. And I recited that before I went on every mission. Have faith, not fear. Have faith, not fear. So I'm a man of faith. But also I'm a person who understands what the Bible tells us. That faith without work is dead. We can have faith, but we must be willing to put in the work. We can hold faith, but that faith must be reinforced by the fact that you're not going to outwork us. It's what the Lord asks, and it's what we will deliver. So we've got 36 days and a wake up to put in the work. 36 days and a wake up to make sure that we can forge a future that those who came before us hope for and those who come after us deserve. 36 days and a wake up to make sure that the basic freedoms that we hold dear and the opportunities that we have for future generations will be protected and not mocked. 36 days and a wake up to show that in this moment, the hope and the aspiration that we have for this country, the belief that we have for what this country can be, is one that includes us and not excludes us. 36 days and a wake up to make sure that the beautiful destiny that we are hoping for are going to have our fingerprints on it. In fact, they'll have our fingerprints all over it. I thank God for each and every one of you, because I understand that we right now are in a moment where we must understand the assignment. And if we go and we approach every single day for 36 days and a wake up, we will know that the assignment will be fulfilled. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on until victory is won. God bless you guys. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the blessings and for having me.